Politics these days is increasingly confusing. I tell people that I'm very privileged to have served under 4 prime ministers, and this would have obviously have made me unique in Victorian times, but nowadays it's something that almost every cabinet minister can say.
Delighted to welcome Michael Portillo's biographer here, exclusively, Michael Gove. Welcome, Michael.
Hi, good evening, Ed.
How did that prediction go?
Well, like so many of the predictions for which I've been responsible.
Brexit.
Well, we'll get on to that inevitably, I know. No, but the irony, there's a triple irony.
Oh, my God.
Is that I was Michael Portillo's first guest on Times Radio as well.
You're kidding me. I didn't know that.
But no, we had a detailed half-hour conversation about democracy in the 21st century and the rival claims of populism and patriotism on the human heart.
Are you trying to make out that Michael Portillo ran a serious show and this is utterly frivolous and banal?
No, I'm saying that with Michael, we had a wonderful mix of culture, intellectual conversation, and a light-hearted, wry smile as we look back on the week's news. And I know that's what you'll be giving Times Radio listeners.
And then just to close the loop even more, as this becomes more and more of an insidery conversation, you were meant to take over this show and you stupidly took a job with Rishi Sunak.
Yes, Times Radio were very kindly going to offer me the chance to be, in effect, your warm-up man and to do a show. And it had been the case that I'd been lined up when, unfortunately, and this just goes to show my predictive powers are remain terrible, just as I was looking forward to a broadcasting career, unfortunately, Liz Truss fell, Rishi became Prime Minister, and he asked me to join the government.
Which you weren't expecting.
I was not expecting,
You
no.
genuinely weren't expecting. So take us through the phone call.
I got a telephone call a few days before I was due to come into the studio. In fact, I'd already been discussing with the great Times Radio team what I would do, and I got a telephone call asking me to come into number 10 Downing Street and to see the Prime Minister. Earlier that morning, we'd seen various people announce their resignation. So I knew that it was likely that with some people having gone in the cabinet, including Simon Clarke, who'd been levelling up secretary, that there was a chance that I might be hoiked back off the subs bench and back onto the pitch.
Was it quite annoying to get the same job, though?
No, it was actually good in one respect because there was unfinished business. So in the interim, while I'd been on the back benches, Greg Clark and Simon Clarke had been doing the job. Greg under Boris, Simon under Liz.
Oh, my God, it's confusing.
It is confusing. Politics these days is increasingly confusing. I tell people that I'm very privileged to have served under 4 prime ministers, and this would have obviously have made me unique in Victorian times, but nowadays it's something that almost every cabinet minister can say. But Greg and Simon were carrying on with much of the work that we had been doing beforehand. But on everything from Grenfell to levelling up, there was unfinished business. There still is, that we need to do.
But you didn't serve under 4 prime ministers because Liz Truss didn't have you in her cabinet. You must be gutted that you didn't get the full...
Well, for David Cameron, Theresa May,
I've
Boris
forgotten
Johnson,
about her.
and now
There
Rishi.
have been 5, haven't there?
There have been 5.
Do you regret not serving under Liz Truss?
No.
Did you get on well, you and Liz Truss?
For a lot of the time, yes. Liz was a junior minister when I was Secretary of State for Education, and I really enjoyed actually working with Liz then. But we did not always see eye to eye on every issue slightly later in her career. And I, in the pages of the Times in the summer, explained why in a choice between Liz and Rishi, when it looked actually at that time as though Liz was going to win, why I thought Rishi was the better candidate. And as well as obviously outlining why I thought Rishi was stronger, I also had a critique of what Liz was not of her.
Don't go on. Just get to the point.
No, I critiqued her economic policies.
That's why you weren't. I've just realised, of course, I've just worked out you've been sacked by 3 prime ministers.
Yes,
and demoted by 1.
Sacked by Theresa May.
What was the worst? What was the most annoying sacking? I'd imagine the Theresa May one was the most annoying.
Yes, but I deserved it. So
why?
Well, I've been responsible for all sorts of
briefings.
No, not briefings. In the immediate aftermath, as we all know, of the Brexit referendum, I was originally, in fact you were as well, supposed to be supporting Boris Johnson for the leadership. And then the prompting of a number of people, yourself included, led me to launch my own...
I did not prompt you to run for leader.
Yes, you did. Led me to launch my own ill-fated leadership bid. And I think after that, I think Theresa was well within her rights to say, thank you very much,
because George
Michael.
Osborne was furious at the way he was sacked by Theresa May, but I imagine she did it quite gracelessly.
No, with me it was perfectly fine. I mean, she just... I certainly don't and did not blame her. Any new prime minister needs to sort of clear people out of the
Michael,
cabinet.
we've got to stop, because we're having a chat.
I know.
And we're old friends. We've got to stop this political, cliche stuff. You've got to talk like a normal person.
I know, but it's only fair for Theresa to have said, right, okay, you've hardly exhibited the finest political judgment in the course of the last week, so time for someone else.
Okay, let's try and get you to talk normally about the big political issues of the week. We'll start with the biggest, Matt Hancock's return to Parliament.
Yes.
Did you see him today?
I did not. I was in my constituency.
You were coming on the show. You could have made an effort.
I did read his interview in the Daily Mail, and I have read some exclusive extracts from his pandemic diaries, exclusively serialised in another newspaper, but which the best bits of which I'm sure will appear in the Times.
Are you going to go to his book launch on Monday?
If the whips let me, yes. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Do we know what the whip is on Monday?
It's the online safety bill, remaining stages, so I may have to box and cocks. But no, I'm very keen to go. I mean, well, one of the things that Matt says in his interview is that he asks forgiveness for breaking the rules, the guidelines that he himself had been responsible for. But he also says, I'm not going to ask forgiveness for the decisions I made over the pandemic. And I actually think that he was a good health secretary. We all have our flaws, but I think that during the pandemic, his handling of it, even though he was machine gunned by all sorts of people, I think was broadly right.
I think that's fair enough, but he's quite an annoying colleague to work with there. He must have been quite irritating at cabinet meetings and cabinet subcommittee meetings.
No, because we tended to see eye to eye on things. I mean, I know that George Osborne said that Matt is a Tigger in a world of Eeyores. And the thing is that if there are people who are always, always, always enthusiastic, then it can be wearing for some people. But I found the fact that he had these sort of endless reserves of energy rather reassuring, actually.
It's reminding me, actually, I always found it very odd that you were such a kind of lockdown authoritarian, that every time I opened a newspaper, it was always Michael Gove arguing for stricter measures. Why was that?
Well, there are two things. One, I was convinced by the medical and scientific advice that we were getting at the time.
By the experts.
On this occasion, yes. Yeah. And the second thing, though, is I think one of the reasons why I was criticised is that there are and have been some people who have tended to detect a sort of conspiratorial hidden hand behind certain decisions. And at certain times, there are certain politicians, Peter Mandelson is one, who get framed in that way. And at certain times during the time that the Conservatives have been in power, people have been framed in that way. George Osborne was, and then from time to time I have as well. So.
Do you think he should get the whip back, shouldn't he? I mean, it's absurd he's had the whip taken away from him.
Well, I can understand why it was, and if I'd been advising him, I would have said, don't go, and B, you can't just, leave your constituents and indeed the parliamentary party like that without a bar your leave. But on the whole, I think forgiveness is a good thing.
So Matt Hancock should get the whip back?
Well, it's a judgment for the Prime Minister.
Yes, but I want your answer.
Which is, I believe in forgiveness.
Okay, you've heard it here first. Which celebrity show will you go on?
I think it'll be a lot. Well, A, I'm not a celebrity. B, I don't think any of them would have me. But probably Celebrity MasterChef.
Oh, good. Okay. So we've got two. It's a new show, and everyone wanted exclusive. So you want Hancock to get the whip back, and Celebrity MasterChef is your celebrity show of choice. Private schools.
Yes, I went.
The Prime Minister's given a vigorous defence of private schools in the face of Labour's onslaught, saying that private schools should pay VAT. Michael Gove, the real Michael Gove, the journalist, wrote in his interregnum when he wasn't in cabinet that was the right thing to do. And it's actually what you believe, that private schools shouldn't have charitable status, but you obviously have to toe the line now. But what's your real view? Just between us in the studio.
Well, my real view is that Keir Starmer is launching a remarkably personalised attack on Rishi Sunak, and it is very low politics.
Okay, but that's irrelevant. What's your view on the policy on private schools?
I think the conduct of the Leader of the Opposition is relevant. My view about private schools is that I would like them, and when I was Secretary of State, I encouraged them to play a bigger role in the state sector. And whether that's through the sponsorship of academies or whether that is through making sure that the teaching and the facilities that they provide can play a part in improving the state sector. To be fair, many of them have heeded that call. So you've got schools like the London Academy of Excellence in the East End, Eton, Brighton College have all played a part in making it one of the best state schools in the country. That school wouldn't have existed without our school reforms. I'd like to see more independent schools doing just that.
Because the argument about taking away charitable status is they could put all their assets into a charity, which could then fund state schools, and the kind of core school, the Eton, could be just a very expensive school for very rich people. But the charitable assets of Eton could then really go to work in providing top-class state education.
Well, I think there are lots of different ways in which independent schools can help, and the best do. So Eton already, as well as being involved in the London Academy of Excellence, also plays a role in sponsoring other academies. The headmaster of Eton at the moment, a great guy called Simon Henderson, is working with Star Academies Trust, which is a multi-academy trust, in order to create 12 new outstanding state schools across the country. That's what I want to see, because I think that the divide between, the gulf between the experience of those who have the very expensive and brilliant educations that independent schools, the very best independent schools provide, and those who have been left behind, that bridge, that gulf should be overcome.
Okay, in fact, sticking to Keir Starmer's agenda, he's also said he's going to abolish the House of Lords. What's your view on the House of Lords?
It's got better recently. Thanks to
I saw you in the House of Lords this week. You were actually in the chamber. What were you doing in the chamber?
Andrew Roberts, friend of mine, has been made a...
Never heard of him. Who is he?
Andrew Roberts, Lord Roberts of Belgravia, biographer of George III and Lord Northcliffe, both of them available in hardback as welcome Christmas presents for the history student in your life. Lord Roberts of Belgravia, who was introduced into the House of Lords on Monday, and I wanted to be there for that moment in history. And my view about the House of Lords is you can't have any view on the changing the House of Lords, its composition, its powers, whatever, unless you are asked the question, well, what impact does that have on the House of Commons? So if you want to make the House of Lords more powerful, you're in effect saying that the Commons, the principal democratic chamber, should be less powerful. And I think that's the wrong way around.
And to make the House of Commons more powerful, you could move the House of Lords to Stoke.
Well, I am very keen and have been consistently on the fact that when Parliament is being repaired, as it has to be, because we don't want Parliament to go the way of Notre Dame, we need to decant, move out the peers. This is a perfect opportunity for the House of Lords to be relocated to another great town or city. Stoke-on-Trent, only 2 hours away by train.
What about the House of Commons?
Well, the House of Commons, I think, should more often have its deliberations and its committees out and about, but I think the House of Lords would be the perfect place, or perfect chamber, perfect body, to go to somewhere like Stoke, handy for Manchester, handy for London and the South East, fantastic place. If not Stoke, then York or Middlesbrough or
But I don't
Sunderland.
understand, it's logical for the House of Lords to move out, but not for the House of Commons. I don't understand the difference.
Well, the House of Commons is the principal chamber. The House of Lords is a revising chamber.
Yeah. So you think Stoke is a sort of second-hand city compared to London?
No, I think that there are full-time members of the
You
House
think
of
the
Commons.
principal chamber should be in London, but the secondary chamber should be in some second-tier city?
No,
in your view,
I think
as
it
the
would be
levelling up secretary.
I think it would be a very good thing, and so do the people of Stoke, and indeed the MPs.
Yeah, they
Stoke.
would like the House of Commons. Why isn't the House of Commons good for the people of Stoke?
Well, I actually think that bits of government, and I've been responsible for this, should move out of London.
Yeah,
so
like the House of Commons.
So we move the Treasury out.
The House of Commons to Stoke.
I have had House of Commons committee meetings in Aberdeen, which I was participating in. So as far as I'm concerned, the more geographically dispersed power is in this country, the better. But it's the House of Lords that has to move out at the moment. Those are the plans. So the choice was, do they move just across the road to an expensive QE2 centre? Or given that people in the House of Lords do other jobs, some of them are brilliant broadcasters on Times Radio, some of them are historians.
Like Ruth Davidson, yeah.
Exactly. Why don't we, recognising that members of the House of Lords do the job, with 1 or 2 exceptions, part-time, let's make sure that they can combine their careers elsewhere.
What kind of week do you think the Royals have
had? I think I try never to talk about the royal family because I'm a passionate, devoted monarchist. I love the King and I love the Queen Consort.
Are you going to watch the Harry and Meghan Netflix documentary, since they're not technically royals? You can tell us that.
I probably won't watch it, but that's purely to do with time.
Oh, okay. Can I talk to you? Famously, the Queen's view on Brexit made it into the newspapers. But in terms of Brexit, there's been this story this week about Brexit pushing up food prices. I mean, quite honestly, Michael, again, you must have some regrets, not necessarily about Brexit per se, but how Brexit was delivered. I mean, it's been the worst kind of Brexit that we could possibly have. You must be thinking, this is not what I wanted to see happen. It's crazy.
Well, I remember more than 6 years ago, 6.5 years ago, when you tried to persuade me that Brexit was a bad idea.
David Cameron said he'd put me in the cabinet if I persuaded you, and I begged you to change your view.
And I know that you were doing so because of that you were putting the country first, as ever. And but I have to say, of all the people who tried to persuade me, you were among the most long-winded. And I don't. Of course, look, any political enterprise like Brexit, there are going to be
But these small
frictions and
businesses
difficulties.
that can no longer sell in Europe, I mean, they must turn up at your surgery, don't they?
There are lots of people at my surgery who take different views on this. There are some people who were always against, whose views have only intensified. Others who were always against Brexit, whose views have only intensified. Other people who've shifted their views over time. Of course, there was always going to be short-term friction. I always use the analogy of moving house. Whenever you move house,
Come on, short-term friction is a pretty curious way to describe the catastrophic impact on trade.
I don't believe it's catastrophic. And I think if you look at how our economy has grown compared to other European nations, and also if you look at the European Union's own model, the European Union's own model has been overly reliant on exports to authoritarian China, overly reliant on energy from authoritarian Russia. If you look at how the UK has behaved in the last 12 months, biggest international crisis facing Europe.
Yeah,
the
got
country,
nothing to do with the European Union.
Well,
With the European Union, we could have defended Ukraine as members of the European Union.
But before the referendum result was announced, we were told two things. One, this country would become isolationist and it would become a forgotten figure in world affairs. Quite the opposite. The other thing that we were told was that there would be a recession immediately afterwards. That did not happen. So, of course, some of the hopes that people vested in Brexit are going to come to fruition later rather than sooner.
What are the hopes?
Well, we will be increasingly, as the European Union and other countries and other political systems choose a form of regulation which is anti-growth, we will be choosing a form of regulation in everything from
Like what?
AI, life sciences, already in gene editing. So one of the most significant developments in the next 10, 15, 20, 25 years will be a move away from methods of agriculture which are exploitative of resources towards methods of food production which are both better for human health and the planet. Gene editing will be part of that.
Okay.
That is why Brexit is an environmental good thing.
I'm racing through because we're heading to the news, but early retirements. Sajid today, Diana Davidson this week.
Yeah.
Young, I think still under 30.
Deanna is, yeah.
Does this say something about the Tory party? Either people just... I thought Alice Thompson wrote a really shrewd article in the Times saying if you're Diana Davidson, you go into the tea room and it's full of these crusty old Tories with their antediluvian views, mentioning no one in particular.
Apart from me.
You think, enough is enough. You and I were Tory modernisers in 1997. I mean, do you think there's an element of, we're going to lose the election, or there's no turning the ship around while these people are, dominating the Tory party agenda?
I don't know. Sometimes really talented people stand down even when the Conservative Party is on the brink of a landslide victory, as you did in 2019. So I don't think you can extrapolate too much. And I think the thing is that there's an individual reason in each case. So Deanna's standing down because of the changing shape of her constituency, but also because she's devoted most of her life to politics. And as you say, she's not yet 30. I think she wants to have, know she wants to have a breather.
But the short answer is you don't think it shows that the Tory party is basically collapsing?
No, I think it shows that
Don't you feel a bit lonely? You've lost me, George, David.
Yeah, but there are...
You can't have any friends left in the House of Commons. It must be like walking around as,
The great thing is that there are a generation of new Conservative MPs who are doing fantastically. So whether it's Julia Lopez or Kemi Badenoch or Alex Burghardt or David Johnston, who is
actually,
the MP for Wantage.
I like all of those people.
Yeah.
Can I just quickly ask, because
Claire Coutinho.
Yes, they're all brilliant, actually. Now, that's a very good defence. But it is obvious, isn't it, Michael, that you're going to stand down at the next election?
Oh, I'm not.
You've done everything. Why would you want to serve another term? Are you going to announce it on Monday, or are you going to announce it on my show?
I can announce exclusively on your show that on Monday I will not be standing down.
You are confirming exclusively on this show that you are standing at the next election?
I am putting myself forward for the constituency of Surrey Heath. I hope that they reselect me. And
You're crazy. You could have this show. You could have a column. Why are you doing this? What? Quickly, in 30 seconds, why do you still want to be an MP after the next election?
I'm addicted to public service.
You are addicted to politics. That's a very good point to end on. I've never known anyone who has been so dedicated to serving in government. We haven't had a chance. Maybe we should just have you on every week for half an hour for sort of kind of deep therapy session about how long you've served in cabinet.
Well,
anyway,
I'm very
we've run
happy
out
to
of
come
time
back.
now, Michael. And thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you,
You've
Ed.
really made the first half hour of my first and possibly last show.
It's brilliant. You're brilliant. I want everyone to tune in every Friday between 7 and 10.
Or catch up on the app.